very excited today to get back into the great sport of freestyle skiing, particularly the great sport of aerials, with a guest on the show today who has got a very good resume. Some highlights on that resume include 3 World Cup podiums, 1 Team World Cup podium, ranked as high as 7th in the world, and currently sits 8th in the world in the World Cup standings. And I'm so excited to learn more about her career and the exciting time that we are living in right now in the world of Australian freestyle skiing. It's a pleasure to welcome to Off the Podium, Abbey Willcox. Abbey, first of all, welcome to Off the Podium. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It's exciting to be here.
Well, it's exciting to have you on right now because I don't usually do this at the beginning. Usually we start off with the standard, how did you get into the sport? Tell us about your journey. But I've got to get straight into a little thing that's happened over the weekend at the time of us recording this. History for Australia, a World Cup sweep. Not only the first time ever in women's aerials, the first time ever in a winter sport that Australia has swept a podium. And not only did we sweep the podium, we got top 4. We got off the podium, off the podium, if that makes sense. I mean, I need to find out right now, Abbey. I mean, buzzing, is that the word to use right now that you and everybody's feeling right now in the world of freestyle skiing in Australia?
Yeah, I mean, Deer Valley, it was incredible. We were not expecting that, of course, but it was just so surreal to have, not just 3 Australians on the podium, but, Airlie in 4th as well. You know, we've had like dominant skiers in this space for 25 years now. And like Alyssa Camplin said, like we've been trying for 25 years to get a sweep on the podium. So to get that over the weekend is just absolutely incredible. The atmosphere was amazing that night and it couldn't have been at a better venue, really.
Well, you love Deer Valley. I mean, everybody we talk to on this podcast loves Deer Valley, whoever competes there. But you yourself, your 3 World Cup podiums have all come in Deer Valley, Abbey, right? So, I mean, just what is it about this place that you and every single Winter Olympian who competes there seems to love so much?
I don't know what it is. Like, people often call it the Super Bowl of freestyle skiing just because you get 8,000 people coming there to watch moguls or aerials or dual moguls in a night. And it's just absolutely electric. Like if you're standing at the top of the jumps about to go, you can just hear the roar and the energy of the crowd. And I think that really helps me when I'm jumping because it just, it distracts me a little bit, but then, it just makes me feel like I'm a part of it and like I want to put on a good show for everybody too. So I don't know what it is about Deer Valley, but it's incredible.
It's funny you say that. Now that you talk about like a crowd aspect, and this is something that I've never really put 2 and 2 together with aerials, is that I kind of liken it maybe to like a long jump or a triple jump in the Summer Olympics, where you get an athlete as they're getting ready to jump, they're getting the crowd behind them, right? They're starting to clap. They're like, come on, like get behind me. Let's do it. Why don't we see that in aerials? Is it just because you're so mentally focused on that jump? Like, I want to see somebody at the top of a ramp clapping, going, come on, cheer me on. I'm ready to jump.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm sure that would work for some people. I know a few skiers that would probably do that if they could. But I don't know, for me, and I'm sure some of my other teammates as well, it's I'm just trying to focus on what I'm doing. Like, I don't think I have the mental space or the energy to be up there trying to hype up the crowd because I'll just get too distracted and, might miss my takeoff or miss my jump. So,
you don't want that in aerials.
It'd be cool though.
Yeah, just kind of pumping it up there. But I mean, it's just, you talk about Alyssa Camplin saying this is something you've been trying to do for 25 years. But I mean, just for the sport, but for winter sports in general, I mean, this was making national news in Australia, that Australia had achieved a top 4 sweep of a winter sport. I mean, just can you put that into words of not only obviously for your sport of aerials, but like how that is making the winter sports community feel less than a year out now from the next Olympics?
Yeah, I mean, being Australian, like we're a summer sports country. So being a winter athlete, you don't often get like the spotlight as much as, some athletes or just, summer sports in general. So to kind of do that for Australia and put just winter sports a little bit more in the news and a little bit more in the spotlight is just really great. Like we have so many incredible athletes across all sports, moguls, like especially. So there's yeah, it's really great to be able to do that.
I mean, this is the thing that always such a winter fanboy. I love the Summer Olympics. Don't get me wrong, Abby, but like it's just I've always been more of a winter fanboy, and it sort of always makes me happy when we do see athletes like yourself getting that news outside of an Olympic year, because as you touch on, a lot of that attention doesn't generally fall onto your shoulders until an Olympic year. But I mean, through freestyle skiing, as you said, moguls. We saw obviously at the weekend of time recording this, Bree Walker getting a gold in the monobob as well. Like, I mean, we're seeing that. I mean, Scotty James recently getting a gold at the X Games. I mean, there's so much happening in the world of winter sports in Australia that I'm sure when Alyssa Camplin's making these bold predictions 25 years ago, that at that time it's maybe only coming in areas. I mean, give it 10 more years, we're going to be sweeping all these other winter sports on the podiums, it seems, at this rate.
Yeah, it's incredible. And we have so many mighty athletes just across the board, and we don't often have the facilities or the time of year on snow in Australia to train. So it's just incredible. We keep getting results, and I'd love to see winter sports in the spotlight more.
I agree. Completely agree. We need to make that. I think as you're saying off air, Brisbane 2032, technically a Winter Olympics for Australia. So, pushing out there for having some of those winter sports included. But I mean, I've got to ask a question now that we've sort of talked about that. We'll come back to a little bit more about where you're at in the current World Cup a little bit later on. But getting into the sport, Abby, now I see on the bio, gymnastics is on there. So I always have this vision that there are freestyle skiing scouts and poachers in Australia who literally just hover around gymnastics venues and are like, you, I want you. Like, can you confirm or deny that that is how it generally works and how that's how you get involved into aerial skiing?
Yeah, so most of us are gymnasts, or we've done trampolining or diving, and often sometimes someone will reach out to a gymnast or a diver, or sometimes they will reach out to aerial skiing. In my case, I was actually down at Gindvine for a ski weekend with my family, and I decided to take a trampolining class, and I did it with my brother, and we were just playing around on the trampolines, and I had like 10 years of gymnastics behind me at that point. If I wanted to try aerial skiing, and I was like, well, what is aerial skiing exactly? Like, I'm not completely sure what this is. Like, and yeah, he kind of explained the whole process to me, and he gave me Alyssa Camplin's book to borrow just for the weekend when I was there. And yeah, I read up on it, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, do you mean I get to like travel the world and like ski and flip? Like, this sounds like really cool. Um, so a few years later, yeah, I joined the program and went through the development ranks, and yeah, it's it's a pretty unique way, but I think a lot of other countries also take gymnasts and put them into aerial skiing now as well.
I always have this ongoing thing, though, that I say, I mean, this is again no disrespect to any of our great freestyle skiers, but I'd like to see it work the other way around. Like, can we just maybe have some like gymnastics poachers like out there at the Jeff Henke Centre going like, oh, you're pretty good, come to gymnastics? Because I don't know, with all this talent we've got in freestyle skiing, if we've missed out on like some very talented gymnasts maybe that we've sort of over the last 20 or so years maybe could have been winning a few more medals in the Summer Olympics. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a great point there. I mean, with winter sports, like we have some incredible people that have been backing it from, the 80s, the 90s, and kind of just built from there. So I guess the program's really strong, and that's definitely helped in our favor. But it'd be great to kind of see it flip the other way for gymnastics too.
That's what you did there. Flip the other way. That's clever. See,
There we go.
yeah, very, very, very clever. There. Was it a desire, sort of through that gymnastics pathway that you were doing when you were younger, Abby, to go to an Olympics, represent Australia? Sort of like, was that on the bucket list for a young Abbey Willcox?
Yeah. I think like since I knew what the Olympics was, I wanted to go compete at it. I wanted to represent Australia. I always had a funny feeling that it wasn't going to be in gymnastics, but I also just had no idea what else it was going to be in. I just knew I wanted to try and represent Australia, and as a 15-year-old gymnast that is just about to stop her sport, like, I didn't really know what was next. So I thought, yeah, let's try aerial skiing and let's see how that goes.
I did read on your bio that another sport you took part in was horse riding. Was that something that ever could have been on the agenda, that you could have maybe gone the equestrian route instead?
Oh, I don't think I was that passionate about it. My mum loves horses. I grew up with horses. Yeah, I rode a lot when I was younger, but no, I don't think that was kind of ever on the cards, to be honest. Just
Wasn't
I
quite going
preferred
down that
flipping
path.
in the air. Yeah.
Yes, not flipping off a
Yeah.
horse, essentially, going that way. Do
No.
you remember that first jump that you ever got that opportunity? Obviously, you start off slow. You don't get sent off a triple straight away. I realize, but I'm sure that first time when you're staring down at, even if it's a bump jump or something like that, that it's quite probably a daunting experience.
Yeah, I do actually. So we start off water ramping. Um, before we even do any kind of jumps on snow. So I went down to Lilydale in Melbourne, and there's some man-made ramps into like a dam, um, and we put on our skis and we just tried jumping into a dam for fun. And yeah, I mean, the first one was quite scary. Like, I wasn't trying to flip or anything, but it's a completely new sport. Like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm giving it a red hot crack. And yeah, it was interesting.
If is this the same dam? I remember reading David Morris's book a few years ago, and I remember him vividly describing this kind of like muddy, murky dam that kind of was not the maybe the cleanest place in the world, and you're always very dirty. Is that the same place that you went to?
Yeah, that was the same place. Yep. It's been there for
Wow.
many years, and up until recently, pretty much every freestyle skier in Australia would learn jumping into that dam. But yeah, we have
Wow.
Brisbane
And now we've
now,
got
which
now
is
we've got a
great.
pretty good facility though in
Yep.
Brisbane. Yeah, just it's improved slightly,
Yeah,
I
just
guess. Over the years. But there's
slightly.
something almost something charming about that though. That kind of this one murky dam near Melbourne has produced so many great Australian champions. Without that, we wouldn't have Alyssa, we wouldn't have Lydia, we wouldn't have Laura, Danielle, yourself. Like, I mean, kind of like it's almost like poignant. This needs to be some sort of like national history registered place in Australia, I feel.
Yeah, seriously, I mean, you wouldn't even know it's there unless you're looking for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible, and it just has so much history. And I want to know how many skis are actually at the bottom of that dam, because it's been used since like the 70s, the 80s. Like, there's got to be so many skis down the bottom there that will never
Wow.
reset.
It's kind of like when you discover how many bikes are at the bottom of the canals in Amsterdam or something like that, right? That it feels like that.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm a history buff, and I would love to learn, like, and this isn't a question for you or I. This is a deep dive, but like, who literally woke up one day and was like, "Oh yeah, aerial skiing. We could do this in Australia. It's just bloody. We've got a dam out the back here. We could do this." Like, I mean, some point in history, somebody's done that, haven't they? And then that's just led
Mm.
on to the great superstars of now. So there's a deep dive to
Yeah.
finding out the history of that place, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, maybe we've got some, avid listener or somebody who knows that or something along those lines. I'd love to learn that. Do you remember, like, sort of growing up, if you're watching the Olympics, as you said, didn't really know what freestyle skiing was, but did you watch any Winter Olympics at any point in your life? Were you aware of who Alyssa Camplin was before you even got her book?
Yeah, I was always aware of Alyssa. I was aware of Lydia and Jackie, just because I was a gymnast, and you tend to follow people who were gymnasts previously, like in going into other sports. So like, I did know of them, but I didn't actually know completely what the sport was about. I just knew that, like, Alyssa Camplin was a gold medalist, and same as Lydia. And yeah, I mean, yeah, they're just incredible. Like, I think the first Winter Olympics I truly watched was Vancouver in
Hmm.
2010. So I remember that very vividly when Lydia won the gold. Um, and I just thought it was incredible. She was such a force of nature. And then I kind of just kept following it bit by bit from there.
Do you remember meeting someone like Lydia or Alyssa for the very first time and what those moments were like?
Yeah, I remember meeting Lydia. I think it was my first camp at Lilydale. She was down there, um, and she was just training a little bit. And I remember meeting her and just being completely in awe, a little bit speechless as well. I was like, "Oh, I don't know what to say. Don't say something stupid." Um, but yeah, I mean, she was so nice. She still is. They all are. Yeah, absolutely. It just gave me a lot of motivation for the
It
future.
goes back to that sense of community. Like that's one thing I always appreciate about the winter sports community in Australia is that it just seems so close and so tight knit. And like literally, I think I saw on Lydia's Instagram story the other day that she was propped up in a beautiful home in Finland watching Bree win the gold medal in the monobob, and like just the comments that I see her post. I mean, Alyssa Camplin, she's such a cheerleader. Obviously, she's chef mission of the Olympic team, so she's out there championing for it. So it doesn't matter how many years ago that these athletes competed for Australia. It just seems like you're all still so close. The veterans mixed with the newbies.
Yeah, that's something really special about winter sports, I think. Like, especially in Australia, it's just such a tight-knit community and everyone helps everybody and you just want everybody to succeed because I think everyone knows like how hard it is coming from Australia to um succeed in the winter sports world and kind of keep doing that year after year after year. So I just I haven't really met a community like that. It's quite special.
I've got to ask a question. I know he's in a completely different discipline of freestyle skiing and probably a bit before your time. I don't know if your paths would have ever crossed Dale Begg Smith. Did you ever come across him? And if so, like, have you got any Dale stories that you could share with us? We love him so much on this show.
I've actually never met Dale. I wish
Not many
I
people
had.
have. He's a mystery
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
International man of mystery. Yeah, I would love to. But sadly I don't have any Dale stories. But I remember, my brother really loved watching him ski when he was growing up and was very inspired by him. So yeah, incredible athlete.
He's our Olympic gold medal, Abby, on this show. Just saying, if we ever land him, and like we know he would give like 2-word answers. We don't care. It would
Yep.
just be, it would be the absolute peak of this podcast. So as always, Dale, if you're listening from your private island still, by all means, send us a message. You're always you're welcome on the show. I believe you made your international debut in 2016 at a Europa Cup in Finland. I mean, sort of from that progression of going from a murky dam in Melbourne to then the slopes in Finland. I mean, what was that progression like? How did you sort of find it? And sort of what were the main challenges that you found really having to overcome to get to that point where you're able to put on the green and gold and represent Australia?
Yeah, it was my road hasn't been very easy. That's for sure. It's been a bit of a up and down obstacle course, to be honest. Putting on like representing Australia at the Europa Cup for the first time was incredible. It was the year after I'd just started in aerial skiing, and it was I was only doing the very basic jumps. Like I'd kind of just gone over to Finland and learnt how to flip on snow. So that was a really great memory of mine. Um, After that, I actually my funding got cut from the team, and I then had to kind of fight my way back onto the team a year later to then debut at my first World Cup. So yeah, it's been a bit crazy at the beginning there, but we got there eventually, and I'm still in it. So
Here you are. How does that work with the funding? I mean, this might be a complicated question, Abby, or something you might not want to get into, but like in terms of, is it based on positions, your performances, like kind of like how does it work when it comes to securing funding and then having it cut?
yeah, I mean back then it was at the end of an Olympic cycle, and at the end of an Olympic cycle, funding always changes. And I was in the development team, and basically, I got the short straw because they didn't think I was going to be good enough. So that was pretty much what it came down to, unfortunately. But I had the opportunity to go and train in Switzerland after that with the Swiss team, and try and make my way back onto the Australian team after that. So super incredible for like super grateful for that opportunity. Um, and I think honestly it made me a better person. It made me a better athlete as well. And it taught me a lot about resilience that I would not have known if I didn't get cut from the team. So
I was going to ask that because sometimes I can imagine it's moments like that that as hard as it is, it almost spurs you on a little bit more to, if you're being told you're not good enough, you kind of almost want to say, well, fuck you, I am good enough. Let me show you that I am.
exactly, yeah, that's exactly what happened. I was just like, well, fuck this, I'll show you. Like, I can do this sport, and I will be good at it too. So, yeah, it was definitely a big motivator to kind of get back out there and prove people wrong.
And how did you find that experience then in Switzerland? Did that help a lot sort of on that journey to then ultimately, as you said, you made your World Cup debut a couple of years later?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I had the help of the Swiss coach Mish, who's just one of the greatest coaches of all time in aerial skiing. I had a great team around me. The Swiss team were just so fun, and I think they taught me how to really love the sport and really like um just enjoy jumping. And I also had Dave Morris there as well. It was his first year coaching after he just retired. So yeah, the combination of everybody there was really great, and I couldn't have been in like more of a supportive environment, to be honest.
We love Dave. I think everybody loves Dave. If anybody knows anything about Dave, you're going to love Dave, right? And I still to this day say one of the biggest robberies I think I ever saw in world sport was him in 2018. I mean, absolutely robbed. We all know it, and we're all still standing by that. But I mean, having a motivating voice like Dave there to kind of help out there as well, because as I said, I read his book and I read all the adversity that he went through and the amount of times he was cut and sort of all that kind of stuff. Well, so are you able to lean into him a lot with sort of his experiences around that as well to help you out in overcoming those, I guess, mental aspects of that is obviously hard to overcome as an athlete?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, Dave went through all of that himself, and it, I don't think there are many people like in aerial skiing that probably understand that. But he's definitely one of them. And so it was really great to kind of pick his brain sometimes about it and how, things work and how do I get back onto the team, etc. So yeah, it was great.
Through that journey, is a World Cup debut in 2019. You ultimately get your very first World Cup bronze medal in 2020 at Deer Valley, as we know, your favourite place in the world, essentially. I mean, that was obviously a pretty good year for you, that 2019-2020 season as well. I mean, that feeling first time on the podium, I mean, was it feeling like it was all worth it then at that point and that kind of things were coming up Millhouse there for Abbey?
Yeah, that was it was incredible. I don't think I've felt anything like that before. I was in shock. I was happy. I was crying. It was a roller coaster, especially after everything I'd been through with trying to get back on the team. It was also just a bit of a like, fuck you, I can do this. Look at this moment. So yeah, it was surreal, and I mean, I didn't know back then, but it was going to be the first of a few Deer Valley podiums. So yeah,
It's
really cool.
home away from home, essentially, it sounds like. I mean, how tempting are you? I don't know how much of a salty person you are at that, but do you just want to just take a picture of that bronze medal and just sneakily send it to one of these people who said you weren't good enough and just be like, told you, or like, fuck you, look at this.
I mean, I should have, but I think at that point, I was just trying to let it go. I was like, it was consuming me, to be honest. Like the whole situation of being kicked out of the team and stuff. It was consuming me, and by that point, I was like, I just need to let this go, and I just need to accept that was my story. Then let's keep going. But
Keep
yeah, I should have.
pushing. Yeah, well, it's still time, Abby. It's still time. You
Yeah,
never know.
exactly.
You won a couple more since, so just wait for the collections to kind of to build up.
Exactly.
Obviously, the goal at that point, though, 2022, I can imagine that was what you were pushing towards, and I guess kind of the hunger. The closer it gets, I don't know if you have a calendar or a countdown app or something like that. Like, I mean, sort of that drive to keep pushing towards those Olympics in 2022.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the goal back then. between my podium then and the 2022 Olympics, unfortunately, I broke my leg. So it was, and that was during COVID as well. So it kind of made, it was a bit rough trying to get surgery. I had to wait for um, 2 weeks in hotel quarantine before I was able to get surgery on my leg after breaking it. So, I mean, a lot happened between, yeah, that podium and 2022, and ultimately I didn't make it, which hurt a lot. And it was probably one of the toughest periods I went through. But it's, yeah, it is what it is, and you just have to move on from it.
The thing with that injury, if I'm not mistaken, you had just
Mm.
qualified for a final in Russia and you broke your leg on a training jump. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which that I mean, does that add to? Because I mean, you've qualified for a final at a World Cup, so you must be feeling fantastic. But it's just kind of like one of these things you've got to train in the meantime as well. So I mean, I can imagine that just also adds a bit of like shit. What could have been to that moment?
Yeah, yeah, I know. And that's a crazy thing. I remember that day vividly, and I felt like I was jumping so well, and I felt like I was on fire, and I've had really good feeling about the competition. And yeah, I mean, it was just a freak accident, unfortunately. And yeah, not much you can do about it after that. I mean, it's aerial skiing. Unfortunately, freak accidents happen all the time. So
I was going to
yeah.
say, I don't think there's been an aerial skier on this show who could not have told us about some level of a horrific injury or that sort of taken. I mean, obviously with Lewis on recently, what he's sort of gone through and everything along those lines as well. But how many surgeries ultimately did you have to sort of have, and sort of how quickly was it until you were able to get back on the snow after the leg break?
Took 3 surgeries all up to kind of, um, you know, have my knee completed. One was to put all the metalwork in, one was to take a bit of the metalwork out, and then one was to take the rest of the metalwork out. So,
Wow.
um, yeah, it was I ended up starting water ramping maybe 5 months after I broke my leg. So, um, yeah, I started very slowly, and I spent a lot of time in the gym trying to just rebuild the muscles and um, retrain my leg and make sure it was able to withstand like the forces that I was about to put it through. And then after that, I went on snow in November. So, um,
Wow.
yeah, total of 10 months before I was back on snow.
See that? I mean, I'm sure as an athlete that seems like forever, but as somebody who's not an athlete, that to me seems so quick. Like, I mean, I get sick and I get a cough or I come in, I'm so like, oh, this is terrible. This is the longest thing in the world. How am I ever going to recover from this? Can't imagine like snapping my leg and then being back at 10 months. I mean, kind of when you're going through that period, is it that balance of trying to do it properly so that when you eventually get to that level, you're not straight away snapping again versus the impatience of like shit, I've got an Olympics coming up. I need to
Mm.
get out there. Come on, put me out there, coach. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I was so impatient, especially in the early stages of rehab, because I was like, I can walk now. I swear I'm fine. I can walk. No, I had to be patient. And yeah, I mean, it's hard, and it teaches you so many lessons. And really, unless you kind of go through the rehab process, it's yeah, it's anyone who's done it understands that it is so painful and it teaches you so much.
And essentially, you still have some level of time to qualify for Beijing. So, like, there's still that prospect. You're not completely out of it. But
Mm.
ultimately, given that time away and sort of the complicated system that is world aerial skiing qualification for the Olympics, it didn't happen. But did you stick on that belief that you were still going to be able to qualify for Beijing?
I did, yeah. I was there pretty much wasn't a doubt in my mind that I was going to qualify. But I didn't realize how much my broken leg would play into, my performance, I guess. I don't think I realized that. I thought, I'd come back from my broken leg and I'd be back to where I was. And but yeah, everything just felt different. like my leg, obviously it felt different. My brain, the way it was working, the way it was thinking and functioning, it was all just a bit different. And there was a lot of fear there. Um, Fear of doing it again, and also fear of, I guess, not making the Olympics, and all of that kind of played into me not being able to qualify, and also missing half of the World Cups as well. So um, yeah, it was rough. It was I was trying everything that I could, but it just wasn't working in the end.
You have two very incredibly open and honest posts on Instagram about that period in your life, Abby. And I'm not going to go through all of it here, but the one where you announce that you haven't made it, you literally open up, "I'm absolutely heartbroken to say that I have not been selected to compete in the Olympics," and again just go into incredibly open, some of the most honest words I've ever seen from an athlete. And then you, not long after that, you post an even more deep and personal post, literally titled "Dear Elite Athlete, a letter to those who didn't quite make the Olympics." And again, I'm not going to read all of it, but it's just incredible to kind of just see how open and honest you are about that. Did you find that posting that helped in that situation and sort of helped through what you were feeling? And sort of, did you use that in a way to not only help yourself, but as you post in the Dear Elite Athlete post, to help with other athletes who at that time were struggling mentally, more so maybe than physically, about missing out on qualifying for an Olympic Games at that period?
Yeah, I think it helped me, definitely, personally. It helped me put what I was feeling into words. I didn't necessarily need to share it to everybody, but like I'm super glad that I did, because I had so many people message me afterwards saying that this is open their eyes, and this has explained exactly how they've felt because they didn't make an Olympics or an Australian team or whatever it is. So I feel like I'm really glad that I shared that, because it helped quite a few people that don't often feel seen. When Olympic selections come around, it's everybody's getting praise for making the team, and it's absolutely incredible for everyone who has made the team. But there are a whole bunch of athletes out there that are going through like a world of hurt because they've just trained their entire lives and they don't get selected for this moment, and they often just get forgotten, and it's hard to get through as somebody who's been through it. It's You often don't feel seen and you feel forgotten about, and you feel like, why was this even something that I pursued, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm glad I put it out there because I think it helped a few people.
Just want to read one part from this. This is your Dear Elite Athlete one. Again, it's so open and just was absolutely entrenched reading it. You've written here, "You're most likely going to spend weeks, months, maybe years learning to get over it, get through it, and get stronger because of it. That's okay. You take the time you need, because although sport has been your entire life up to this point, your entire life needs to be your mental health right now and whatever makes you happiest." I mean, it's just, again, I thoroughly recommend people look this down on your Instagram and read it, because that just, it sums up so much of what you're saying there. And I think that even non-athletes can use that probably too in aspects, because we've all had moments in life, be it going for a job, a relationship or something like that, where something's hit you, and sometimes you just need to read something like that, Abby, to kind of help you get around that corner.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know I personally took um, probably an entire year, maybe even a year and a half or two, to completely kind of go through all that I was feeling from that period of my life. And I just had to take the time to let myself figure it out. And ultimately, I do think I'm stronger because of it. And it was tough, but in hindsight, I am glad that I went through it because I learned so much.
And at what point in that period do you then go, all right, I'm going to push towards 2026. This dream of mine hasn't been achieved, and it sucks what's happened, but I've got the strength. I can keep going, and I'm going to keep trying for this dream.
Yeah, I mean, So 2022 happens and I don't really know what to do with myself. I know that I'm going to take some time off from the sport, but I also think like I don't even know if I'm going to go back yet. I don't know if I want to go back. Like it's this might be it for me. But um yeah, 2022 comes around and I decide to go get a job and I focus all of my energy on that job. I was
Good
very
job too,
lucky
by
to
the
kind of
way. I
have.
just realize what you do in your career right now. I'm not a Broncos fan, but I'm very impressed with your job. So
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I got some work experience at the Brisbane Broncos, and I just focused all of my energy into that because I wanted to do something else, and I thought that um, I've always thought that athletes need to have something else outside of what they're doing because when you have a bad day and when you have a bad season, like you need to have something else for your mental health to kind of fall back on. So I just channeled everything I had into that job. And ultimately, it worked out, and I'm working there at the Broncos in marketing and game day operations. So it's honestly, if it wasn't for that job, I'm not sure what I would have done in 2022, and it would have been a lot harder. So I'm very grateful that I had that opportunity and I just chased that. So, I mean, a year later, I'm still doing the same job, and I'm not sure if I want to try skiing again, but I thought, let's just like give it a go. Let's just dip my toe in. Let's try and do one training camp in the winter and see what happens. So, yeah, I mean, after that, it was just baby steps. And it took nearly 3 years for me to kind of, well, nearly 2 years, 2.5 years for me to come around and want to try and go for the Winter Olympics again.
and is it a mixture of achieving that goal of becoming an Olympian mixed with the passion for the sport? I mean, simple way of asking, Abby. I mean, do you still have that passion and love for aerials that also helps drive you towards continuing in the sport?
Yeah, I mean, so if I reflect on myself before 2022, I think I just wanted to go to the Olympics. Like that's all I wanted to do. And so couple of years ago when I was really reflecting on whether I wanted to kind of come back into the sport and do it all again, I was like, I can't just do it because I want to go to the Olympics. Like, that's not a good enough reason for me. Like, I need to love this because it's day in, day out that I'm doing this. And, you know, often it's scary. It's scary standing up there at the top of the jumps. You need to love it and you need to want to just kind of be around the people, be around the sport and pursue that. Um, so I worked very hard to focus on that and I'm still focusing on just trying to love the sport. And of course I want to get to the Olympics and do well and all of that. But at the end of the day now, if something were to happen and I don't get to the Olympics, like I don't regret it because I've loved every minute of this.
And you're always going to go down in history as somebody who was part of that World Cup sweep on the podium, the World Cup top four there as well. So nobody can ever take that away from you as well, no matter how you look at that. But I love sort of hearing that kind of reflection on that and kind of finding that love for the sport. Because again, back to what I was saying before, in everyday life, we all need to, I guess, find a love for what we do. Otherwise, sometimes you can sort of question, well, what am I doing this for? Is it to get to an Olympics? Is it to get one listener off the podium? I don't know. You need to sort of work out what you're doing it for, right? And maybe it's love, and that's all we need sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. As cliche as it is, it was as simple as loving the journey and
Yeah.
embracing it along the way, and that's what's working for me now.
I always somehow find a way to quote or bring up cool runnings. And this is not just because you're a winter athlete. I think it's just any Olympian on this Olympics podcast. But it's when they say peace be the journey, right? Like that's just what they want, right? That's what they're trying to do it. They're finding that across the way. So cool runnings is so inspirational for life. That's what I'm just, people need to use it more, I think, kind of moving forward with that. But I mean, outside of what we've just talked about in terms of the podium on the weekend at the time of recording this, your form in general, 6 of the last 7 World Cups you've been in, you've finished in the top 10, Abby. So you're finding some pretty good form right now. So, I mean, how outside of everything we've just talked about and kind of finding that love, but just the performance-wise, like how are you feeling right now sort of with how you're competing? Because we're obviously recording this, about a month or so from the World Championships. There's still more World Cups to go, but how are you feeling right now with sort of how things are going for you?
Yeah, really, really good. I feel like I've been having a good run, and I feel like my form's going well on competition day, especially. And I mean, of course, I have some niggles here and there in my knee and my back, and just kind of deal with that along the way as much as I can. But yeah, it's really exciting. Like I feel like I'm in a really good headspace as well. So yeah, I'm just taking it and running with it and seeing where it takes me.
Eighth currently, the time we're recording this, you're eighth in the standings. And just want to point out for our Australian listeners and viewers right now that of the top 10, 4 Australians are in that top 10 right now, which is the most of any country. This is obviously a sport that we do very much love in Australia, but obviously Laura absolutely dominating things on top. Danny not too far behind her there as well, and you've got Ali behind you there as well. So, I mean, is there something in the water right now at Australian freestyle skiing and aerials? Like we seem to be just getting better and better at this sport all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible time to be a part of it, that's for sure. I think, honestly, the Brisbane water ramp has really helped us. I think being able to have a home base and just train on home soil, and obviously our coaches are incredible, and we're a really great team. So it's a combination of everything. It's just a really exciting time.
And the one thing too, actually, I said in the introduction, 3 World Cup podiums. I want to add 4 World Cup podiums because you were a member of the team earlier this year that got a bronze for Australia, which makes me happy because obviously with David, he sort of went into a lot of detail about sort of the struggle to get men involved in the sport in Australia. But now obviously we've got Riley out there. So the prospect's hopeful that Riley can get on the plane to Milano next year as well, and that maybe we can make our debut in the mixed team as well in 2026.
Yeah, that's the hope. That's the goal for sure. Riley's such an incredible kid. He's doing really well. It's really exciting to see, and I think he's going to be, he's only going to grow from where he is right now. So super exciting to watch, and hopefully, yeah, fingers crossed for Milan.
It's not a question I generally have to ask on this show, Abby, but why are men not getting involved in the sport of aerial skiing in Australia? What do we need to do to get more men involved in the sport?
Yeah, great question. I mean, it's hard not being in a winter sports country because we take, female gymnasts and some male gymnasts when they're 16, 17, 18. And by that point, it takes a little bit longer for the men to develop into doing triples and triple twisting triples, quadruple twisting triples, and all of the skills that you need to be able to be competitive. So that's why it's mainly females, and I would love to see more men in the program. And I think we'll get there, especially with the water ramp now in Brisbane. Yeah, it's just I think other countries have it a little bit better because they know how to ski growing up often, and they can start flipping when they're a bit younger, so it's a little bit easier for them.
The one thing that surprises me a lot when I look at someone like David is that he's just, as I said, one of the nicest guys you will meet. He's such an engaging personality. Why the Australian media has not jumped on him for something like I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here? Like he's a reality TV show star in the making here. Like, and I bet he would. Like, this is the thing. And like, to me, one of my favorite ever Olympic medal wins I've ever seen was David winning silver back in Sochi. So to me, it just like get him on these shows, expose the sport more. I mean, every Australian knows who Alyssa is and who Lydia is. We all know who you all are. But we need to get David out there, and maybe that can get the men out there as well. I don't know, but pass that on to Dave. Like, tell him to apply for some of these shows. Lydia's a great Survivor player. She's got connections at Channel 10. So come on, David, get out there on the reality page. You're a star in the making, I say.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see him on those shows. I think he'd go especially well at Ninja Warrior, to be honest. I think
yes,
he'd win that easily.
And then he could like maybe come out of retirement because Modern Pentathlon, of course, in LA are scrapping the horse riding and they're doing the Ninja Warrior course. So I don't know how his fencing, his swimming, his running, and his shooting is. Work on those.
Yep.
And then, if he's got the Ninja Warrior stuff down pat, then boom, Summer Olympian as well. There you go.
Absolutely. No brainer.
You pass it on.
Yep.
It's been a while since I've had him on the show. I don't think I've got his details anymore, but you can pass it on behalf of us there, Abbey. I think that would definitely work a treat. I'm going to get into a set of questions which we're going to close out in just a moment. I just want to come back to your role though with the Broncos. Were you a Broncos fan before you went there? Were you an NRL fan, or was it a case of now you adopt them? Because I always wonder about people who get a job for a certain team. Like, I'll use the example. I'm a Cronulla Sharks fan. All of a sudden, I get employed by the Brisbane Broncos. Great, thanks for the job. But I'm going to feel weird having to cheer for them now. So, like that's my long-winded way of asking, were you at least a Broncos fan, or do you have to become a Broncos fan?
I mean, I grew up in New South Wales, so I did go for the Newcastle Knights growing up, but I wouldn't say that I was like a super passionate fan of NRL because I was more interested in gymnastics and, Olympic sports basically. So yeah, I mean, for me, it's not too weird for me because I just love sport in general. And I'm absolutely a Broncos fan now. It's such a great club to work for and be a part
Correct
of.
answer.
Yes. No, I really am. And it's really great to kind of just be a part of that environment and be a part of that team as well. And also just see behind the scenes of how like the biggest NRL club in Australia works. It's really cool.
How does that come about when it comes to Origin time? Like, you're working for a Queensland team, but you're from New South Wales. Like, I mean, that must make it a challenge.
Oh, I go for New South Wales, and all of my work friends know that, and they all hate me for it. So, no, there's a few of us there that are from New South Wales, so it's okay.
I was going to say, everyone hates everyone at that point. When I was living in Sydney last year, and I'm a Tasmanian, so like I just pick a team and I go for Queensland, and I was on a train in a Queensland jersey going to Stadium Australia. So you can imagine what lovely language was directed at me when I was sitting on that train. So that was a fun time. But it honestly, any Australian or anybody who's in Australia at the time of Origin, it's one of the best sporting events you will ever attend, just in terms of atmosphere. It's just any Origin game is just absolutely incredible. And come from a Tasmanian, we don't even follow rugby that much, so it's definitely very, very good. How are the Broncos going to go this year, Abbey? I mean, you got any insight for our NRL fans out there? Hope a return to the grand final after making it a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been there obviously, but I've heard they've been training really hard in the preseason. So yeah, I've got a good feeling about this year. I think it'll be good.
That's good. All right. Okay. Fingers crossed that will go about there. Abbey, as I said, we wrap up every single interview with a set of questions. These are fairly new. These are our OTP 10, we're calling this now, where it's a standardized set of 10 that we now ask all of our guests. We don't change these up depending on the guest. This is specifically just the 10 straight questions here. And I'm going to start off with the first one. What is the one thing that you never leave home without when traveling to a competition?
Oh, my AirPods.
Your AirPods. Good answer. Very important. And do you always remember to charge them? Because I always find that when you get to charge, it's like the worst thing ever. Like when you're on a long trip and shit, I haven't charged my AirPods.
Yeah, I've had so many circumstances where I haven't charged them. So now, like every night, pretty much just charge them, because I live by my music when I'm training.
Oh, you're going to like one of these other questions we've got to come in very shortly. What's a tradition or a superstition that you follow before every big competition?
Oh, I try and stay away from superstitions. But I mean, I do tend to click into my left ski before my right ski. It's just habit. Okay. It's just what I do. So maybe that.
That works. That counts.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I like those little like quirks, like, whether it's putting a certain shoe or something on first, or, like I remember when I played field hockey, I was a goalie. I'd always have to tap the goals in a certain order before, like, I don't know why. I have no idea why I did it. Didn't help. I wasn't that good, but it's still something you had to do, right? So you get into that habit of it. You said you're a music fan. So what's a song that is on every one of your pre-competition playlists, no matter what?
Oh. I mean, I really like 90s music, so Around the World.
Oh, yes. ATC, yeah, good song.
Very, very good song.
Yeah, it's just kind of that start where it's like, dun, 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 like, and just gets you pumped up. Okay. I like that
Yeah.
one. There was who was it? Who did was it Ava Max did a cover recently where she sampled that, I think, in the background, I think, of one of her songs. I'm pretty sure it was Ava Max. I
Yeah.
could be butchering that, but I know there
I
was
should
a
look that up.
modern.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a more of a modern song where they sampled around the world. So I'm pretty sure it's Ava Max. You can correct me on that later if I'm wrong. What is the most unexpected or funny DM you have ever gotten?
Ooh. Huh.
I'm not
Great
sure if maybe
question.
your inbox was flooded on the weekend, like from anybody, just random like little ones that are coming through, or I don't know how much you check your request box or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah. I've had, you know, I don't get a lot of fans in aerial skiing,
Yet,
It's
yet,
just
Abby, yet.
yet, yes. So I have had like a couple of mums kind of slip through my DMs that I don't know, and just say like, "Oh, you're so incredible. Can you wish our daughter good luck on the weekend for her competition?" So,
Oh wow,
yeah, that's
I
very
like
wholesome.
that. Oh, go
Yeah,
the mums.
yeah,
Oh, more of
all
that.
for the
More
mum.
athletes need the mums getting the messages there. There we go. Oh, use that one for inspiration. What is the weirdest thing that you've ever eaten at an international competition, and did you like it?
Oh, um, I've had horse in Kazakhstan. So
Okay.
very traditional meat in Kazakhstan. So it's probably the weirdest I've had at a competition. Yeah,
Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy the horse?
it didn't taste too far off beef.
Okay. All right. I've got to ask, actually, with a horse, we had wrestler on this show, Jaden Lawrence, and he talked about drinking horse milk. Did you ever drink horse milk at all?
No, I have not drunk horse milk.
Okay. It sounded
Interested to.
disgusting. So,
Yeah, okay.
yeah,
I won't
apparently
won't try it
it's got
then.
a natural fizz about it. So, yep,
Okay.
don't know why, but that was a vivid memory I have from that. You bring up horse, I think about horse milk, apparently.
Mm.
What is, speaking of food, your ultimate guilty pleasure meal after a big competition?
Uh, See, I'd say chicken palmy, but I can't get
Oh,
them anywhere else in the world. So nuggets.
nuggets. They can. I do respect you that you pronounced it correctly and said palmy and not Palmer. Well done. But yes, yeah, anything like battered like chicken, like you can sort of
Mhm.
imagine. So is that when you get back to Australia in a couple of months? Is that like the first thing you just go to your local pub and just like get a palmy?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, that would be the last meal that I ever had for sure.
Good answer. Because it's weird. I don't know if you get that a lot when you're traveling. Like, what's the one thing you miss about Australia, like in terms of food? Is it Vegemite? It's like, no, it's always the stuff you can't get. Like mine is palmies and
Mhm.
classic dim sims. Like I'm talking trashy takeaway store,
Yeah,
like
okay.
5 for $2 shitty dim sims, right? Like just golden parcels of crap, but they're great. So yeah, now I'm hungry. Good way of asking these questions, Ben. If you could swap sports for a day with another Olympian, what event would you choose, and how do you think you would fare?
Ooh. I mean, to be honest, I'd swap with Sam Kerr, and I'd be a Matilda, in soccer. I think she's
Great
incredible.
answer.
The whole team is amazing. So I don't know how I'd go though. My hand-eye or foot-eye coordination's pretty bad, but I mean, I love it. I wish I was good at soccer.
Well, they're going to say, like, back to our point about pumping the crowd up. That would be perfect, to be able to do that. And
Exactly.
and I'll flip that around. How do you think Sam Kerr would go at aerials? I mean, if we're swapping, she has to get on the skis. Like, I don't know if I've ever thought about Sam Kerr doing aerials before now. So that's an
Yeah.
interesting question.
I mean, I've seen her do a couple of backflips and they're really good. So I feel like she's
Great point.
someone that could do anything. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that is very good
Yeah.
point. Yep, that best answer so far. I think that was a good one. If your Olympic journey or your sporting journey were a movie, what would the title be, and who would play you?
Oh, I mean, I love Jennifer Lawrence, so I'd get her in to play me. The
Good
title,
answer.
I mean, probably Never Give Up. So
Inspirational at the same time. I can see it. There's Jennifer Lawrence on the poster. Yep, I can
Exactly.
see it right now. Good answer. I like that. What is the one question that you're tired of being asked, and what's the one you wish people would ask instead?
Oh. Um, I
These are
don't
good
know.
questions. These are like they're very like deep. I feel we end these on the
Yeah.
deep level ones too.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, because I've been in America, I feel like recently I've just been asked a lot about Australia. Like, oh, how
Mm-hmm.
far away is it? Like, yeah, just a lot of sometimes I've been asked, if you can drive there or something. So probably something along those lines. I feel like I've had a lot of that recently. Um, I wish more people in general would probably just ask um, people about their journeys.
Yeah.
I think
So
that'd be nice.
that's what I like about this question, because like not only it's kind of a bit of a cheat as somebody who asks questions for a living, that maybe it helps me. Oh, what
Mhm.
can I ask you instead? But like I always find that athletes would have questions, specific sports as well. Like there might be
Mm.
something related to your sport or something that you would love to tell the story of, but nobody ever asks you that. So that's why I
Mm.
like that question. Kind of it just,
Yeah.
get you to think a bit there a bit. I like it. All right. Here's a deep one to end it on. And you actually almost have answered this, to be fair, in this interview through some of your other answers. But what's one lesson that you have learnt from losing that you think has shaped you more than winning?
Mm. Yeah, I think I've learnt a lot about the journey, and embracing it and the process and doing things your way that work for you, not necessarily what works for other people. So I've learnt a lot of that from losing, um, which I never would have learnt if I didn't fail. So yeah.
Good answer. I like that. Abby, before we let you go, people want to follow that journey of yours that is obviously continuing towards Milan next year and beyond. Social media, Instagram, TikTok, where can people find you and follow you on that path?
Yeah, Instagram is mainly what I use. So Abbey Willcox is just my handle, and yeah, I post a lot on there, so you can absolutely follow my journey.
Beautiful. TikTok, are we on TikTok at
I
all as
am
well?
a
Or?
little bit, but yeah, I mean, same thing. Abbey Willcox. I'll try and post more on there again.
I'm just that like old dude now who's just like fascinated by TikTok. Like we use it for this show, but we don't really do much with it. And because I'm just, I just feel too old saying the words TikTok half the time. So when we get athletes on this show who use it, and we've had some who just are absolute stars on it,
Mm,
I love seeing the content. So
yeah.
that works great. Abby, all the luck moving forward, everything that is going to happen between now and 2026 and beyond. It's been such a pleasure to learn and have you so open and honest with everything that you've answered on this show. And congratulations again, obviously, for what's happened on the weekend. And I'll say congratulations for everything moving forward too, as you continue to push on with your amazing career in the sport of aerial skiing.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me. It's been very fun.